The Transformers movies are, well, they are certainly movies. There is an endless supply of negative criticism that can be leveled against these movies. But at the very least, they are stimulating to watch. If anything, probably too much.
Come on, baby! Yes, that's what I'm talking about! Woo!
Yes, the Transformers movies are stupid, crude, and loud, and I love them for it. With the recent release of Transformers Rise of the Beast, the robots in disguise are back in full force, and for now the future of the franchise is looking strong. And now they've got Optimus Harambe Primal helping to usher in the new era. But seeing the new era of the Transformers on the big screen has got me feeling all nostalgic for the Transformers movies of the past. So today I invite you all to join me as I rank every single Transformers movie, including Rise of the Beast, from worst to best. Just to be clear, I'm only ranking every theatrically released Transformers movie, so I'm not touching any of the feature-length TV specials or anything like that. With that being said, let's descend into Bayhem.
Boom! Bayhem! I'll kill you! Stay back!
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Transformers Age of Extinction is the cinematic equivalent of eating a KFC Zinger box. It seems like a fun idea when you order it and you really enjoy it for most of the meal, but then you get about a third of the way through the box when you realize that it actually isn't any good, and now you have a sore stomach and you regret the whole experience. The Transformers films have always been excessive. It's how an individual reacts to this excess that determines their opinion of the franchise. You can write these movies off entirely as sins against cinema, or you can appreciate them as dumb and loud roller coasters of movies. That being said, Age of Extinction is excessive even by Transformers movie standards.
It's your car? Huh?
I think that pretty much covers what's wrong with this movie. It's just too much. Like seriously, this movie is almost 3 hours long. Is every minute of that runtime essential to the movie?
I just called the cops on you because this is illegal. She's a minor.
We're protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
We dated for a little while. I was a sophomore and he was a senior. It's fine.
No, it's not fine.
We've got a pre-existing juvenile foundational relationship. Statute 2705-3.
What? Texas statute? That a real law?
Caesar.
I don't know. You tell me. I'll tell you what I do like about this movie. The CGI is perfect and a cinematic marvel, but that's a given with every single one of these movies, so this movie doesn't get any extra points for good CGI. The action is still batshit insane fun, but that's also a given with these movies, so no extra points. That's a running theme with this movie. If you like the other Transformers movies, you will find something to like about this one. The problem with this one is that it's padded out with so much other nonsense that it's hard to sit through the rest of the movie to get to the stuff that you came for. Michael Bay has always had crude and outrageous characters.
Hey, mammy! Oh, don't be like that. If I had a rock, I'll bust your head, bitch. Same as she deaf, you know?
But the characters in this film are ridiculous even by those standards. Cade Yeager is a shitty, controlling father who slut-shames his daughter.
Sweetheart, your shorts are shrinking by the second, okay? Cold water air dry, please.
And he's an equally shitty boss who doesn't pay his employees.
Hey, you're paying me on this one, right, Cade? Please tell me I'm getting paid.
You know, Lucas, a lot of guys are just happy to have a job at all.
Steals their money.
Please tell me you didn't spend our money on
Oh, no,
this.
don't worry, he didn't. He spent my money, $150 of it.
Yeah, as an advance on your regular paycheck.
What regular paycheck?
Puts them in danger, and eventually gets them killed. Oh, did I mention that this guy is the hero of our story? Then we have Stanley Tucci playing a CEO dude that is so on the nose, it's comedic.
That's company property!
They're not your property.
Go ahead.
I'll kill you!
We have a boyfriend whose only role in the story is to justify why it's okay for adults to date underage girls. And we have a daughter character who is only in the movie to look hot, which is creepy considering that in the film she is a minor.
Well, she's a minor.
Supporting this star-studded cast, we also have whatever other characters Michael Bay pulled out of his bag of racial stereotypes. Oh yeah, and there are Transformers in this movie, but Optimus Prime has come full circle and is now a homicidal maniac.
I'll kill you!
Bumblebee is an arrogant little prick.
This child is about to
Kick your ass.
He brings us shame.
And the rest of the Autobots are walking, talking stereotypes. Galvatron is also in this movie, with one of the worst character designs in history.
And what about that big hole in the chest?
I think it's badass. I like it.
Love it.
Fuck off! He's played by Frank Welker though, so they get a bonus point for that. The Dinobots also make their debut in this movie, but they have no notable characteristics other than that they are giant robot dinosaurs. Which is cool regardless, but like, come on, it's the cinematic equivalent of dangling keys in front of a baby. Ooh, look, it's the robot dinosaurs from when you were 12. Remember? Lockdown is also the bad guy in this one. He's actually kinda cool. It's nice to see a more unique Transformer getting the spotlight for once, and the scene where he kills Ratchet is one of the better moments in the film. Listen, I still like this movie because, well, Transformers. I like every Transformers movie, but even I struggle to sit through this entire movie at times. It's just a lot. All the stuff you like about these movies is still here. It just feels really tired in this one. It's easily the worst one for me. This movie feels like someone challenged Michael Bay to make the most batshit crazy Transformers movie he could and see if it could still make money. Which it did. Like, a lot. Gee, I wonder why.
We gotta call the central government for help.
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。电视。Move, bitch! Get out of my way! Move, bitch! Get out of my way! Hello, yes.
It's almost impossible for me to tell you why I like The Last Night more than Age of Extinction. This movie suffers from pretty much every problem that Age of Extinction does, but I just find this movie more enjoyable for some reason. I do think this film is slightly more restrained than Age of Extinction in terms of action and characters, resulting in some smaller scale action sequences that are more engaging and characters that aren't trying as hard to make you dislike them. It's not as abrasive as Age of Extinction was, and I appreciate that. What this film really suffers from is an overambitious story. The main plot revolving around knights, robot dragons, and Merlin's staff is already bonkers enough. But the movie also desperately tries to set up a cinematic universe that ultimately imploded after this movie failed to live up to expectations. The ending of this movie reveals that the Earth is actually Unicron. You know, the biggest, meanest Transformer to ever exist, setting up the next big threat for the Transformers franchise, only for Paramount to then bail on their Transformers universe plans and hit the reset button with Bumblebee. So basically, they overstuffed this movie with plot lines and setups that ultimately led to nothing except clogging up this movie. So yes, ultimately, the overstuffed story is what really drags this movie down. Because honestly, if you take out the setup for the other failed movies and these subplots that don't lead anywhere, you're left with a decent globe-trotting adventure featuring the Transformers. And yes, I say featuring the Transformers because they take a back seat again in this movie. The marketing for this movie really drummed up Optimus being evil in this one and having an epic fight with Bumblebee only for Optimus to be absent for most of the movie, and when he and Bumblebee finally fight, it's super short and easily resolved. Galvatron is Megatron again in this movie for no reason, and he looks totally different. Barricade also returns after being absent for 4 movies. Oh no, but wait, wasn't he in Dark of the Moon? But he died in that movie. Why is he still alive, and why does he look different? Now that I think about it, it's worth mentioning that this movie has zero regard for continuity from previous movies. This movie implies that Optimus, Ironhide, and Bumblebee were on Earth for decades before the 2007 movie, even though Optimus and Ironhide arrive on Earth for the first time in the 2007 film. When Bumblebee speaks in this movie, Optimus claims he hasn't heard his voice since Cybertron, even though that's a straight up lie.
I wish to stay with the boy.
If that is his choice.
I'm starting to think Optimus has dementia in these movies.
I will kill you!
Why is Starscream's head in perfect condition in this movie when it was blown to pieces in Dark of the Moon? How is Barricade even still alive? And... it's honestly shocking how this movie kinda just pretends that the past movies never happened. This movie also has a schizophrenic aspect ratio that switches between 8 different ratios during the film's runtime. Yeah, this is great. I love this movie, man. Oh, it's so good. Oh, the shifting picture. Oh yeah, the motion so... All these gripes aside, watching the Transformers run around the globe and almost blow up Stonehenge is just entertaining to me. This movie has its moments and is all round just a better time than Age of Extinction. Don't get me wrong, it's still bottom of the barrel for this franchise, but this film is still a mostly enjoyable watch for me. Also, fuck this movie for what they did to Hot Rod.
Give me your face.
My opinion of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen changes every time I watch it. I'll watch it one day and absolutely hate it. Then a year later, I'll watch it again expecting to hate it again, only to come out of the film thoroughly enjoying how insane it is. Then I'll go to watch it again with higher expectations, only to come away hating it again. So yes, my enjoyment and opinion of this movie is a revolving door that I can't seem to escape. Revenge of the Fallen is not a good movie. The internet has made that very clear over the years. Despite that, I kinda love this movie. There are 2 things that elevate this movie above the previous 2 films on this list. The fact that it is a part of the original Transformers trilogy, the era of the franchise that I love the most, and the forest fight. The rest of the movie is laughably bad.
Hold those.
What is that?
This movie was in production during the writers' strike in 2008.
Kick counter.
An event that everybody in the production uses as a scapegoat to explain why this movie is so bad. When, in reality, this movie was going to have humping dogs and robots with or without a writers' strike.
Mojo, no dominating Frankie.
The movie's biggest strength is that it retains all of the best elements from the first film. We follow the same characters and Transformers that we already have an attachment to. The action is just as good, if not better and more plentiful. And the music still goes hard in this movie. Every new element that this movie introduces is...
Can't take that guy anymore.
well, it's...
Can you read this?
Read?
You see that?
We don't really do much reading.
You get the idea.
What's wrong with you?
Almost none of the new bots introduced in this movie get a moment to properly shine, and the spotlight is wasted on the worst ones.
Why don't you get a haircut with your bitch ass? Go whine to your boyfriend.
But hey, at least my boy Jolt gets a whole 30 seconds of screen time.
Yeah!
Even the Fallen, the big bad original Decepticon who has his name in the fucking title, is barely in the movie and pretty much does nothing of value for the whole thing. Like seriously, the twins do more in this movie than he does. And when he does finally show up, he gets his ass kicked by Optimus in under 5 minutes. Also, Optimus starts to show his psychotic tendencies in this movie, so that's cool. But this movie is made so much better by a single scene. I am of course talking about the forest fight. This scene is so good, it belongs in a better movie. Everything about this scene just rules. The action, the music, and the sheer badassery on display from Optimus in this scene is just unreal. Sure, they butcher their death of Optimus Prime arc in this movie, but the scene that leads to it sure is good. Everybody likes this scene, even if they hate this movie. That's how good it is. This movie also lays the groundwork for the ancient Transformers being on Earth for centuries plotline that would run off the rails in The Last Night. But here, they at least make an effort to make sure it doesn't screw around with the timeline. As for Sam in this movie, his college adventures are about as normal as you would expect.
Hey, Professor, I'd do anything for an A.
All right.
And he's also Robot Jesus in this movie. Make of that what you will. So in conclusion, this movie is pure cinematic junk food. It sucks and by no means is it any good for you, but I still love it and I continue to consume it anyway.
I am directly below the enemy scrotum. Together. Let's get it. Turn it up to the maximum, to the maximum, to the maximum.
Rise of the Beast doesn't surpass expectations, nor does it do anything particularly new or innovative. But that's okay, because Transformers Rise of the Beast is a damn fun Transformers movie through and through. I got what I wanted out of this movie, and speaking as a Transformers fan, I am very satisfied. Let me get my criticisms out of the way first. The G.I. Joe crossover tease scene is dumb. The idea and concept is fun, and if Hasbro actually pull off what they are teasing here, the end result could be something great. But in this movie, the scene feels tacked on and clunky. As for the CGI, I do miss ILM. We are long past the age of Transformers movies being pioneers in CGI and special effects. That being said, while the CGI in Rise of the Beast isn't the best in the series, it still looks great. Sure, I could nitpick some effects, but considering how much CGI is in this movie, it's impressive what they've pulled off here. And to wrap up my negative criticism, the Terracons are pretty one note. Yes, the Decepticons have been like this for the entire franchise, but as far as evil Transformers characters go, there's nothing very unique about the Terracons. They serve this movie well and they are cool, but Scourge isn't anything we haven't seen before. Now hold on as I gush about the rest of this movie. The biggest strength of Rise of the Beast is that it finds a really nice balance of influences from both Generation 1 and the Michael Bay movies. This is evident in the character designs, the action, and the tone of the movie. Director Stephen Caple Jr. achieves a nice mix between the heart and character of a movie like Bumblebee and the sheer insanity of the Bayverse films. Optimus actually has a really effective character arc in this movie. He blames himself for losing the war on Cybertron and getting his Autobots stranded on Earth. He isn't here to protect Earth, he's here to protect his people. The story of our human protagonist, Noah Diaz, played by Anthony Ramos, actually plays parallel with Prime's. His initial motivation is to fight only for his family and nobody else, much like Optimus. But by the end of the film, both Noah and Optimus learn that to protect their families, they have to help each other. It's pretty basic character work, but considering we've mostly been starved of realistic characters in this franchise, Rise of the Beast presents a personal perspective to guide the audience through its generic but effective save the world adventure. The human characters work very well in this movie, and having the characters be capable on their own, showcased through Noah's skill with electronics and bravery, and Dominique Fishback's Elena serving as the core reason the Autobots are able to find what they are looking for, makes them both feel important. And giving Noah a battle suit and letting him participate in the final battle was a nice touch, and made him feel more capable than any other past human protagonist. The rest of the Autobot cast are also done justice. Series veteran Bumblebee is stellar as always, even if his early death sidelines him for most of the movie, before he gets one of the standout action set pieces after his resurrection. RC makes me feel questionable things. Wheeljack is a fun addition, and yes, I like his new design, deal with it. And Stratosphere is a much better version of Bayverse Jetfire. Mirage is actually the standout character here. He's funny, entertaining to watch, and his sacrifice at the end hits all the right notes. All the characters in this movie feel distinct, and this movie has a strong identity that a lot of the other movies fail to achieve. The 1994 setting is used effectively, the soundtrack adds a lot to the setting, and you get a very strong sense of who Noah is through the setting and visuals alone. Unicron is also in this movie, and it's exactly what everybody wants. I think he was used well as a looming threat in this movie, and I'm glad they are clearly saving him for an epic showdown in the future. As for the Maximals, look, I'll be honest. They don't have as much screen time as you would expect considering that their name is in the title, but the screen time that they do get is used pretty effectively, and the movie delivers on the promise of a giant robot gorilla. But by no means are the Maximals the stars of this film. The action in this movie is serviceable. If you've seen all the movies before this, you know what to expect by this point. While it doesn't reach the heights of the bombastic fights we got in the Bayverse movies, this is good Transformers action, and each character gets their chance to shine. And if you were worried about these movies moving away from the brutal robot violence of the Bayverse films, there are some gruesome moments in this movie that will certainly satisfy the more bloodthirsty Transformers fans. It finally feels like they are making Transformers films for the fans now. This is a film that pays respect to the past eras of Transformers and brings it all together to carve out a strong new direction for these movies. While it's certainly not the highlight of the franchise, Rise of the Beast is a great Transformers film that continues to steer the franchise in the brilliant direction that started with Bumblebee. It has me excited for the future, and now that this timeline is properly established, I cannot wait to see what the next mainline Transformers movie brings.
Decepticons, attack!
Autobots, fall back!
Bumblebee was a blessing of a Transformers movie to follow the mess that was The Last Night. Here's the thing about this movie. The first 10 minutes are perfect. I mean the perfect Transformers movie with whipped cream and a cherry on top. We see the war on Cybertron with G1 inspired designs. It's a Transformers fan's wet dream. All the fan favorite characters are there, and it's a beautiful setup to the Transformers adventures on Earth. The rest of the movie is still really great, and I love the film as a whole, but the main guts of this movie is like an 8 out of 10 compared to the opening and everything on Cybertron being a perfect 10 out of 10. The rest of the movie that takes place on Earth is honestly the kind of Transformers movie we should have gotten in the first place. Bumblebee is a coming-of-age story, not just for the human protagonist, Charlie, played by Haley Steinfeld, but also for the titular character himself, with both characters pushing themselves to be better and stronger throughout the film. Also, bonus points for whoever put John Cena in this movie, because he is great in this as well.
They literally call themselves Decepticons. That doesn't set off any red flags?
While the reduced Transformers cast consisting of only Bumblebee and the Decepticons Dropkick and Shatter for most of the film may disappoint fans hoping to see a full lineup for the whole film.
No, don't pull! No!
I think the tiny cast of Transformers is one of the film's biggest strengths. Okay, sure, the Decepticons are about as deep as a puddle, but that's only because the film's focus is on the relationship between Bumblebee and Charlie. This focus on two characters gives Bumblebee the most humanity and character we have ever seen from a Transformer in this franchise. What this movie lacks in action and chaos compared to Bay's movies, it more than makes up for in heart and genuine emotion. That's not to say the action in this film is bad. In fact, Bumblebee has some of the standout action sequences in the entire franchise. Like I previously said, everything on Cybertron is brilliant, and personally I think the Bumblebee vs Blitzwing fight is one of the best fights in the franchise. Travis Knight, the director of this film, has an extensive background in animation, so I think that certainly helps when crafting a film that is mostly CGI. Now, I know for a lot of people this movie would be higher on their list. Hell, for a while this was my favorite Transformers movie. But upon revisiting the entire franchise, there are a couple of problems I have with this one. I think the middle act drags a bit at times. The musical score isn't as strong as the mainline films from before, and I miss the emphasis on practical effects that Bay has in his films. All that being said, this is the Transformers film that we needed after The Last Knight. This was a massive course correction for the franchise, and I'm amazed that it has taken them this long to finally release a sequel to Bumblebee.
Tell Megatron, let's tango.
Dark of the Moon fucking rules, man. This movie has kind of had somewhat of a resurgence recently, with heaps of fans coming out and declaring this film as like one of the best action films ever made. Are they right? Well, yeah, kind of. Dark of the Moon sits in a prime position in the timeline of this franchise. Being the third film in the franchise and originally intended as the finale to Michael Bay's Transformers films, this movie pushes the limits of what these movies can be without going overboard as Age of Extinction and The Last Knight did. Dark of the Moon knows exactly what it is doing. It is pandering to its audience. The Transformers action is bigger than it has ever been before, without going into absolute absurdity. The human characters are larger than life and crude in a way that this movie weirdly perfects.
До свидания. That means goodbye.
This movie is hysterical at times, whether it intends to be or not. The plot once again intertwines human history with Transformers, this time suggesting that the real reason we went to the moon was to investigate a crashed Cybertronian ship that contained the means to rebuild Cybertron by destroying Earth. Although the reason that this film is as highly regarded by fans as it is because of the final act. A Decepticon army practically levels the city of Chicago in this movie, in what has to be one of the most haunting and destructive battles this franchise has ever seen. This is a catastrophic level of carnage, even for these movies. People are shot, blown up, and disintegrated non-stop in this movie. Oh yeah, that's another thing that people love about this movie. It's fucking violent.
Oh, this is where Optimus Prime just murders him.
No, Optimus! No, Optimus, no!
So when people are decapitated in a movie, it gets slapped with an R rating, but you can maim giant robots in the most brutal fashion imaginable with blood included and get away with a PG-13. Makes sense. The final hour of this movie is non-stop brutal Transformers action with some of the series' best set pieces, and I love it. The human characters still get their time to shine, of course. Sam's quest to get a job is full of the shenanigans you would expect from a Michael Bay script.
What are we looking at?
Shut up!
And even includes a fun little feature from John Malkovich. Agent Simmons and his partner Dutch are a schlocky highlight as well. I mean, come on. John Turturro never disappoints. Sam's parents make another triumphant return because that's what the fans want and deserve. Seriously, I've always kind of liked the pep talk they give Sam about his relationship trouble about halfway through the movie. It's a strangely good scene to be wedged into this movie.
I will follow you to the end of time. Does it suck or what? I mean, it's like a bad sci-fi film.
Optimus really shines in this one as well, as he's actually given a generous amount of screen time, and he has some of his standout moments in this film. And of course, he is still as violent and ruthless as you would expect by this point.
Hey guys, I'm in New York City just hanging out.
I especially like the moment he shares with Sam when the Autobots are exiled from Earth. Dark of the Moon is a relentless action movie in the best way possible. It is an action blockbuster on steroids, and everything you love about the Transformers movies turned all the way to 11. If you like the Transformers films, it is impossible not to love this movie.
I am Optimus Prime, and I send this message to any surviving Autobots taking refuge among the stars.
The one that started it all is still the best live-action Transformers film we have ever gotten. Shit, I just spoiled what number 1 was. Well, to be fair, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what comes next. Back to what I was saying. The original 2007 Transformers film is one of the best modern action films of all time. It was a revolutionary film that pushed the envelope for what you could cinematically achieve by mixing practical and digital effects in film. Part of the reason why this film works so well is because it modernized the Transformers brand and revived it for current audiences. Sure, people were pissed back when Michael Bay declared that Bumblebee was not going to be a VW bug because it was lame. But now I'd argue that Bumblebee is far more famous for being a Camaro than anything else. The film keeps just enough elements from the original inception of Transformers to make it recognizable to longtime fans, but most of it is updated to better serve the vision that Bay had for the 2007 film. Michael Bay may not be one of the most highly regarded directors of all time, but he excels at crafting practical action set pieces. Considering that the film revolves around giant CGI robots, there is an impressive amount of practical effects work in this film. Most of the time, the only CGI elements on screen are the robots themselves. This is also the best human cast we have ever had in a Transformers film. Shia LaBeouf is great as the witty, awkward, and relatable Sam Witwicky. Megan Fox shines as Michaela, a character who is given the independence and skills that we should expect of all female leads. John Turturro steals every scene as Agent Simmons, and Tyrese Gibson and Josh Duhamel also help ground the film by playing the most stereotypical American soldiers you'll ever meet.
Left cheek! Left cheek! Left cheek!
All the other supporting human characters are a treat to watch as well. As for the bots themselves, this is the best they've ever been in live action, and I stand by that. Each Autobot is visually distinct with their own style and personality, and carry over just enough elements from their original G1 designs to give them a connection to their original characters. The Decepticons, while less developed, are still terrifying, with each con sporting more alien and monstrous designs that tower over the smaller Autobots.
You want to be? No! I want to! For the love of God! Free!
The choice to make Decepticons adopt military vehicles compared to the Autobots taking on more civilian vehicle modes is also a nice visual touch. The plot is beautifully simple as well. The Allspark is on Earth. The Autobots and Decepticons have come to Earth looking for it. What ensues is a race to find the cube before the Decepticons can use it for evil. This is the simplicity that the later films lack, which is a shame because it leaves more space for Transformers action and shenanigans. This film has not aged a day, and that is entirely due to the fact that they tried their damn hardest to make this movie look and feel real. Transformers is one of my favorite films of all time. It is pure action movie goodness. It is the prime example of how to adapt a franchise for a new generation and make a new generation of fans fall in love with the robots in disguise.
One shall stand, one shall fall. Why throw away your life so recklessly? That's a question you should ask yourself, Megatron.
If you're already familiar with my channel, then this result should come as no surprise to you. The Transformers, the movie, is a perfect film to me. You cannot convince me that anything about this movie is bad. In my mind, it is flawless. The animation is gorgeous, the soundtrack is invigorating, and considering the movie itself is basically a feature-length toy commercial, it rises above that task to create something that is truly more than meets the eye. You ask any Transformers fan that grew up on Generation 1 what their favorite Transformers movie is, and I'm sure that 9 out of 10 of them will choose this movie. For decades, this movie has been a cult classic for Transformers fans. Sure, it's not as widely known as the 2007 film or any of the other live action films for that matter, but I think that's another reason why this movie is so special. This is a movie for Transformers fans. I imagine that if a general audience member sat down to watch this movie, they probably wouldn't think it was that special. But for Transformers fans, this movie is everything. I've already done an entire video on this movie, and I would highly suggest you go watch that because I don't think I can do this movie justice with this single segment. This movie is 85 minutes of uncompromised Generation 1 Transformers. Except in this movie, the stakes are much higher. You do get to see most of your favorite characters on the big screen, although most of them don't survive past the first half of the film. The attack on the Autobot shuttle at the start of the film straight away kills Ironhide, Ratchet, Brawn, and Prowl, all fan favorite characters, in brutal fashion, and sets a deadly precedent for the rest of the film. By the time we hit the halfway mark, most of the original Autobots and Decepticons are dead. In reality, all of these Transformers were killed off in the movie because their real-life toys were being discontinued and replaced with the new wave of Transformers that are introduced in this movie. The biggest casualty of all is the main bot himself, Optimus Prime. In the film, Optimus and Megatron have one final brutal showdown that leaves Megatron damaged beyond repair and Optimus dead after he dies shortly after from his injuries. Nowadays, Optimus has been killed and resurrected so many times in various media that it's lost most of its impact, but back in the 80s, nothing like this had ever been done before. Hasbro took the star of their franchise and slaughtered him in front of millions of fans, and reportedly, this stunt left 12-year-olds across the world leaving the cinema in tears. Even today, Optimus's sacrifice still hits hard, and it is one of the best moments of the film. The new cast introduced in the film have also gone on to become fan favorites, with Rodimus Prime being one of my all-time personal favorite Transformers. The voice cast they have in this movie is also kind of insane. A couple notable mentions include Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron, the reborn Megatron, and Orson frickin' Welles as Unicron. This timeless classic that depicts the Autobots' struggle against the planet-eating Transformer Unicron is a brilliant depiction of the Transformers. It's a longer, more mature, and more violent episode of the Generation 1 cartoon, and it is without a doubt my favorite Transformers movie of all time. I'll always love these movies for reasons I can't fully explain. I don't know, man. I don't think these movies are objectively flawless masterpieces by any means, but I enjoy watching them and that's good enough for me. The live action films are action movie nonsense that never fails to thrill despite the questionable scenes that litter those movies, and the 86 movie provides Generation 1 diehards with their own animated masterpiece. There's something for every Transformers fan in the world of feature-length films, and it's only going to get bigger from here on out. So what do you guys think? Do you love these movies? Do you hate them? Let me know in the comments below and give me your own ranking of these movies. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. Cheers.
Autobots, roll out!
We roll.